The hypothesis mentioned in this video is not proven. It's just my interpretation on what time might actually is, trying to explain why it can be dilated and how to use it to explain different phenomena and experiment results. Please think and judge yourself. In this video, I will first introduce my hypothesis on time's nature, showing why it is related to the speed of light, the mechanism why time dilation occurs, and how it can be contracted. After that, I will use this concept to describe the muon observation on Earth's surface and in laboratory, then showing you how it can cope with the famous twin paradox. Later on, I will use this hypothesis to explain the results in Hafele-Keating experiment. You will soon know why you will get older if your plane flies towards west. We will finally get a glance at Michelson-Morley experiment, one of the greatest experiments in relativity that could not be ignored when trying to introduce new concepts. Then I will try to propose a way to verify the hypothesis. See if we can measure the Earth's absolute movement in space. So let's get started. Thanks to Einstein, we all now know that time is not static, but speed of light is. Speed of light is the only constant in our universe. Light travels at near 300,000 kilometers per second in vacuum. In other words, 1 second is when light finishes its 300,000 kilometers run. Then, what does it mean to an atom? To make things simple, let me just use a simplified atom model to explain. I know this model is not accurate, but let us just use this to explain my thoughts. Consider a hydrogen atom, an electron circulating the nucleus at approximately the speed of light. If we assume an atom has a diameter of 0.1 nanometers, the circumference of the electron orbit will be about 0.314 nanometers. 1 second means an electron can circulate the nucleus for about 955 quadrillion times. In other words, when the electron finished 955 quadrillion laps, the atom had experienced 1 second. What I actually mean here is that there are many subatomic particles performing energy exchanges in an atom, and these activities make the atom's clock tick. An atom can only know 1 second has passed when these activities reach certain cycles, like when an electron had finished 955 quadrillion laps. And while the atom is moving with a velocity or experiencing an acceleration, all subatomic particles will need to travel a longer distance to finish a cycle. From a static observer perspective, more time is needed, and that's the cause why time dilation occurs. If this hypothesis is correct, it implies two things. First, there will be an absolute zero velocity that all subatomic particles travel with a minimum distance inside the atom, resulting in zero time dilation. Second, velocity direction counts. Two objects traveling in plus v and minus v referencing zero velocity will experience the same time dilation. Later, I will use the muon observation and the Hafele-Keating experiment to show why this might be true. Muon is an unstable subatomic particle with a mean lifetime of 2.2 microseconds. When a cosmic ray proton impacts atomic nuclei in the upper atmosphere, pions are created. And pions will soon decay into muons and muon neutrinos. Theoretically, muons can only travel a few hundred meters even if they run at 99.97% light speed. But in reality, they can be easily seen on Earth's surface due to time dilation effect. That means they lived much longer than 2.2 microseconds from our perspective, so that they could travel tens of kilometers and reach the ground. Here's the interesting question. Why do the muons from the atmosphere know they are fast and show a corresponding time dilation? Why do the muons we produce in the laboratory know they are slower and thus showing a smaller time dilation instead? There should be a mechanism for the particles to know their speed. And this could be explained using my hypothesis. Let's move to the twin paradox question. In conventional explanations, the twin in the spaceship experiences the acceleration, the 180 turn, the deceleration, etc. Showing the twin in the spaceship is the one in motion. So that the twin on Earth should be the static observer, it should be the twin in the spaceship showing time dilation. In my hypothesis, a zero velocity exists. The Earth is spinning, it orbits around the Sun, the Earth itself has a velocity, and thus there should be a time dilation on Earth. For the spaceship, if it accelerates to a portion of c, it should have a much higher velocity when compared to Earth's one, which results in a bigger time dilation. The clock will run faster on objects having a velocity nearer to the absolute zero. In 1971, Hafele-Keating took 4 atomic clocks aboard commercial airliners. They flew twice around the world, first eastward, then westward, and compared the clocks on the planes to stationary clocks on the ground. The result was the clock on the plane flew eastward ran slowest, experiencing the largest time dilation. Then the clock on the ground, whereas the clock on the plane flew westward ran fastest, with least time dilation. According to Wiki page explanation, everything will be good when using Earth's center as the static observer. Since Earth spins from west to east, the plane flew westward will counteract Earth's spinning, resulting in a reduced velocity compared to a stationary observer on the ground, thus experiencing less time dilation. According to my hypothesis, that's true, but not the whole picture. The explanation in Wiki page actually implies that if you keep on finding a more stationary observer, you will finally reach an observer with zero velocity. And that's what my hypothesis proposed, with an atomic level explanation. Otherwise, you cannot properly explain Hafele-Keating experiment results. Michelson-Morley experiment is a very famous experiment showing ether does not exist and light travels in same speed in any direction. I will now give my explanation on the experiment results. Although we don't know the exact speed our Earth is traveling in space, we know it at least has a motion moving around the Sun 30 kilometers per second. The tricky part is that even though we know the Earth is moving, no matter how we rotate the experiment setup, the interferogram remains unchanged, showing the Earth is stationary. To explain this, the Lorentz contraction came out. If there is a contraction in the direction of motion, the numbers will fit, and I am going to propose how my hypothesis can explain the contraction. Now consider how an electron moves around the nucleus. If we apply the standard model, bosons travel with speed c to keep the electrons and the nucleus together. Doesn't that look like our experiment? When an atom moves, the distance the bosons need to travel in the moving direction should be longer than the distance perpendicular to the moving direction. If we assume the strength of electrostatic force should be the same in every direction, we can deduce with higher velocity, greater contraction should be seen in the moving direction of atom. I think that's the cause of Lorentz contraction. Therefore, we can only get a null result from experiment even though we know the Earth is moving at high speed. Again, atomic activity is the one behind the scenes. According to my hypothesis, velocity of objects is an absolute value. That means a static observer outside the train is always correct, and the observer on the train should be able to observe the same result in some way. To put it simply, we should be able to identify Earth's absolute velocity using a one-way Fizeau experiment. We should be able to see time differences when we rotate the setup to 180 degrees if the velocity is not zero. Let me try to summarize the points I made in this video. Light speed is constant. Light speed is the maximum speed for energy transmission in our universe. That's the atomic activities inside an atom make the atom's time flow. When an atom has a velocity, it increases the distance, and thus the time for the activities to complete their cycles, which eventually slows down the atom's clock, that is, time dilation. Half-life, chemical reactions, etc., are all related to atomic activities, thus would be affected as well. Since gravity can bend light, acceleration can also affect the atomic activities and result in time dilation. There will be a V0, where atoms have no velocity and acceleration in all directions, allowing the atomic activities finish their cycles at shortest distance, resulting in zero time dilation. Therefore, when considering time dilation, we should take the V0 into account and cannot pick any object as static reference. We saw it from Hafele-Keating experiment. If we apply the Michelson-Morley experiment to the standard model, Lorentz contraction will be true, not an optical illusion. We cannot observe that just because our rulers are contracted as well. I am not a physicist. I am not a mathematician. I'm just a hobbyist interested in science and want to share my thoughts. All hypotheses mentioned in this video need some smart people to prove correct or wrong. Please feel free to discuss in the comments. I probably won't reply to each of them, but I will try to read them all. Thank you for watching.